My parents gave my sister the keys to my house without knowing I'd sold it 2 weeks earlier when it happened. I was in Madrid, sitting in my hotel room at my laptop lighting up my face in that cold corporate glow. On the screen, 9,000 kilometers away, were my parents, Romero and Elodia, and my younger sister, Jaime. Their pixelated faces streaming live from the same living room where I'd grown up in Mexico City. Everything was ordinary until my mother's smile shifted to sweet, to rehearsed. That was always her prelude to trouble. "Honey, since we're all here," she said, "your sister has some news for you." Jaime leaned into the camera, eyes shining like a child's, and held something up, a set of keys. "Look, big sis. Mum and Dad said I can move into your apartment now. We're finally going to be neighbors." For a second, I thought it was a joke. My father, with his usual finality, said it was the most logical thing. "Your sister's situation was unsustainable," and my mother added, with that deadly sweetness, "she needs your support. Family supports each other, right?" The room spun. The traffic hum outside my Madrid window disappeared. The air turned solid in my lungs. I smiled, cold, controlled, perfect. "How curious," I said. "I hope the new owners are nice, because I sold that apartment exactly 2 weeks ago." Their faces froze. My sister's grin vanished. My mother's mouth shaped an O of disbelief. My father's jaw tightened, fury rising behind his eyes. To understand how a smile could hold 10 years of pain and 2 weeks of freedom. You'd have to know how I built that home brick by brick, how it became my sanctuary, and how my own family tried to demolish it with a single copy of a key. My story doesn't start in Madrid. It starts in a cramped classroom, with the smell of burnt coffee and the weight of textbooks heavier than hope. I got into Tecnológico de Diera, one of Mexico's most prestigious universities, not because my parents paid for it, but because I clawed my way in. Every semester was a battle fought with sleepless nights, cafeteria coffee, and extra shifts. While my classmates worried about exams, I worried about exams and rent. From AM to PM, I was a student. From PM to PM, I was a waitress at CAF del Sol, a place where the smell of bleach mixed with burnt food and exhaustion. Weekends were for tutoring teenagers who didn't want to learn math. Every peso I earned went into my savings. My parents called it character building. "It's good for you to learn the value of money," my father said, as if poverty were a lesson instead of a punishment. Meanwhile, my sister Jaime lived a different universe. Her private college was smaller, easier, fully paid. My parents rented her an apartment in the nicest part of the city, bought her a new car, and financed a study trip through Europe that was basically a 6-month vacation of selfies and wine. Our birthdays said everything. On my 21st, I bought myself a personal pizza, stuck a candle in it, and sang softly to myself before falling asleep over my notes. 6 months later, they threw Jaime a party on a rooftop bar, over 100 guests, champagne, fireworks, and at the end, my father presented her with a shiny red Mazda. My mother cried. Jaime squealed. I clapped from a corner, smiling just enough not to ruin the photos. That night, driving home to my rented room, I understood something vital. My family didn't operate on fairness. It operated on roles. Jaime was the fragile princess born to be protected. I was the mule born to carry everyone else's weight. My strength wasn't admired. It was used. I worked harder. Graduated top of my class. Got a job in tech, junior analyst, low pay, long hours. But it was a start. I turned my exhaustion into momentum, and my momentum into promotions, from analyst to team lead, project manager to senior manager. Every raise a quiet rebellion against their expectations. Meanwhile, Jaime drifted through jobs like seasons. Barista, office assistant, real estate intern, each one ending with "they didn't appreciate my creativity." And each time, my parents picked up the bill. When she quit, they paid her rent. When she complained about her car, they covered repairs. When she felt spiritually blocked, they sent her to a month-long retreat in Tulum, and at Sunday dinners, they'd beam at me and say, "We're so proud. Etzel, you've never given us any problems." They didn't see that not needing help was just a polite way to say you don't matter. I stopped expecting understanding. I focused on survival, and one night, I made myself a promise. I'd buy a home of my own, not to live in comfort, but to finally have a place no one could invade. The dream of buying my apartment became my religion. 5 years of brutal discipline, no vacations, no takeout, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary. I lived like a monk in a digital jungle, coding by day, freelancing by night, saving every possible peso into an account I called Sanctuary. I told no one, not even my parents. To them, I was still their hardworking daughter in a tiny rental, dependable and humble. They had no idea I was building a fortress out of my sacrifices. When I finally signed the papers, an 80 square meter apartment in Colonia Roma, I walked out of the notary's office and cried. Not from sadness, from relief. I'd done it. All by myself. The place was beautiful even before furniture, tall ceilings, sunlight spilling through the balcony, the quiet hum of a life that was finally mine. I couldn't afford much at first, so I slept on an air mattress and used boxes for tables. Every night I'd sit on the floor, lean against the wall, and breathe in the smell of fresh paint like oxygen. Every item that entered that space carried a story. The grey sofa, 3 months of freelance work. The dining table rescued from a flea market and refinished by hand. The plants rescued too, from dying on clearance shelves. It wasn't just furniture. It was proof. My home became sacred. Order, books alphabetized, spices labeled, surfaces spotless. It wasn't obsession, it was recovery. When your boundaries are trampled your whole life, you start rebuilding from the smallest ones, where a mug sits, how a drawer closes, when silence begins. But then I made the first mistake. I gave my mother a copy of my key. For emergencies, she said, and I wanted to believe her. The invasion began quietly. My sister started dropping by because she was in the area, even though Colonia Roma wasn't on her way to anything. She'd drink my coffee, wander through my apartment, and murmur things like, "Wow, it's so big for just one person." Then came the borrowing, my dresses, my shoes, my perfumes. The black dress I'd worn to a cousin's wedding vanished forever. When I complained, she called me materialistic. And then, the final trespass. I came home early one afternoon and heard noises in my bedroom. I pushed open the door and there she was, Jaimea, sitting cross-legged on my bed, reading my journal, the journal where I'd poured every private thought. She looked up, smiled, and said, "Wow, this stuff about your boss is intense." Something inside me went cold. "Get out of my house," I said. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. She saw the look in my eyes and actually flinched. As she grabbed her bag, I noticed a small lipstick stain, her shade, on one of the pages she'd read. She hadn't just violated my space. She'd branded it. That night, I stopped being the accommodating daughter. I wasn't going to fix it. I was going to end it. That night, I called a family meeting. I had rehearsed everything. Calm tone, clear points, zero emotion. I even wrote bullet notes in my planner, like a corporate presentation. Boundaries. Privacy, respect. But the second I walked into my parents' living room, I realized the script was useless. My sister sat beside my mother, her eyes red from practice tears. My father sat in his armchair, already wearing that look, the one that meant court is now in session and you are the defendant. I laid it all out anyway. The invasions, the missing clothes, the journal, the betrayal. I didn't yell. I spoke like a lawyer. I expected shock, maybe disappointment. Instead, my mother sighed dramatically and waved a hand. "Oh, Etzel, don't be so dramatic. She just read a few pages of your diary. Sisters tell each other everything." I clenched my fists. "No, Mum, they don't tell each other everything by snooping. It's called privacy." My sister began to sob, that high-pitched, quivering sound that used to get her out of trouble when we were kids. "I just wanted to understand you better," she sniffed. "You're always so cold now, so distant. You think you're better than us because you're successful." It was so fake it almost made me laugh. My father didn't laugh. He slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! Your sister admires you and you humiliate her. You threw her out of your house like a stranger." "She acted like a stranger." I snapped back. He stood up, voice booming. "In this family, there are no secrets, Etzel. Family comes first. You will take care of your sister like a proper daughter should." There it was, selfish. The word they'd weaponized my whole life. That was the moment something inside me clicked. I saw them clearly. All three of them. The tyrant, the enabler, and the eternal victim, frozen in their roles, demanding that I stay in mine, the responsible one, the sacrificial one, the one who always fixes everything. So I did the unthinkable. I smiled and said, "You're right. There's nothing more to talk about." Then I stood up and left. They thought I was retreating. I knew I was declaring war. When I got home, the air in my apartment felt heavy, unsafe. The word sanctuary didn't fit anymore. I scrolled through my contacts until I found one name, Uncle Damien. He was my mother's younger brother, the only one in the family who'd ever built something of his own real estate. Big money, quiet confidence. He picked up on the second ring. Etzel, it's late. What's wrong? And I told him everything. The journal, the confrontation, the word selfish ringing in my ears. When I finished, there was silence. Then he said quietly, I've been waiting 10 years for you to call me. My breath caught. What? I've watched them crush you. I bit my tongue 100 times. But you're ready now, aren't you? My voice cracked. I just want out. He paused, then said, good. Then burn the game board. That sentence changed everything. Burn the game board. That's what Uncle Damien said, and once he said it, there was no going back. He laid it out for me in his calm, calculated voice. We're going to sell your apartment. Quietly, quickly, legally. We'll strip them of their only leverage access to you. I listened, half terrified, half electrified. I'd never imagined fighting back like this, but suddenly every injustice, every dismissal, every "you're selfish" fueled me. A few days later, the universe handed me the perfect cover. My company offered me a 3-week project in Madrid. Officially, it was a pilot program. Privately, it was my escape. My parents didn't suspect a thing. So long, honey, my mother said dramatically. We'll miss you. My father grunted something about bringing them souvenirs. If only they'd known. Behind the scenes, Damien moved like a general. Within a week, he'd found a buyer, a small investment firm that, on paper, didn't trace back to me. In reality, the firm belonged to Ariadna, my best friend, a lawyer sharp enough to draw blood with a contract clause. We called it Operation Sanctuary. I signed the sale papers 3 days before my flight. Damien handled the rest. The funds hit my account, 8 million pesos. I wired them to my new Spanish bank account. My freedom, neatly converted to 400. I packed quietly at night, gave away my furniture, boxed the essentials, stored the rest under Ariadna's name. I moved like a thief through my own home, careful not to leave a trace. The day I flew out, I watched Mexico City shrink through the airplane window, a patchwork of lights and memories disappearing under clouds. I felt something between grief and euphoria. My parents thought I was going to a meeting. I knew I was never coming back. 2 weeks later, I sat in that Madrid hotel room, the glow of my laptop on my face, smiling calmly as my sister waved my keys at me through the screen. They had no idea the trap was already sprung. My father's roar cracked through the laptop speakers like thunder. What the hell are you talking about, Etzel? My mother blinked, pale, confused. My sister just froze, the keys still dangling from her fingers. I sold it, I said evenly. 2 weeks ago, for the first time in my life, they were speechless. My father stammered something about the building manager, but I cut him off. The sale was finalized this morning. The new owners took possession today. Silence. Thick and delicious, and then I dropped the final bomb. If you don't believe me, ask your brother Damien. He handled the sale. The look on my mother's face, betrayal layered over disbelief, was almost biblical. I ended the call before they could regroup. The next day, they showed up at the apartment. My father took the day off. My mother brought homemade stew, as if she were dropping her daughter off at summer camp. My sister came with 2 giant suitcases and a smile full of entitlement. They knocked. The door opened, and standing there, immaculate navy suit, hair in a perfect bun, was Ariadna. She regarded them coolly. Can I help you? My father puffed up. Yes, we're here for my daughter. This is her apartment. I'm afraid you're mistaken, Ariadna said. Etzel no longer lives here. This property was legally sold 2 weeks ago. My mother went pale. No, there must be some mistake. We're her family. Family status, Ariadna replied smoothly, is not a legal exemption to trespass. I have the deed right here. She pulled a document from her briefcase and held it out. If you don't remove your belongings from this hallway within 5 minutes, I'll have security escort you out. And then she smiled polite, lethal, and shut the door. That click echoed across the Atlantic. Later that night, I was in Madrid, sipping Rioja in a little tapas bar, when my phone buzzed. A message from Ariadna, plague neutralized. Their faces were priceless. I laughed out loud, right there in the bar, but I knew it wasn't over. When I turned my Mexican phone back on a few days later, I had dozens of messages: fury, confusion, guilt trips, and finally desperation. Please, daughter, my mother said in the last voicemail, voice trembling. Just tell us you're okay. For the first time in my life, I listened to their words and felt nothing, no guilt, no obligation, only clarity. They didn't miss me. They missed their safety net. So I called them one last time. Calm, steady, decisive. I'm fine, I told them. In fact, I've never been better. I've accepted a permanent position here in Madrid. I'm staying. And if you want to have any relationship with me again, it will be on my terms. I laid them out one by one. Therapy, respect, boundaries, independence, non-negotiable. For once, they didn't argue. When I hung up, I stepped onto my balcony. Madrid stretched before me wide, golden, free. The air was crisp, clean. My heart was light. I had lost my family, yes, but I had finally gained myself. That night I whispered to the city, not out of bitterness, but peace. You can't steal what I've already reclaimed, and somewhere, deep inside, I knew it was true. The price of freedom had been high, but it was worth every peso.